Cool. You good?
Yep.
Okay. This is it. This is the one where I tell the story about Nikki.
Don't know what that is.
Your favorite story from me. I've never told it yet.
What?
Well, because we have Reed, and it'll be fresh ears. Wow. And plus, it feels good to share. I'm also kind of scared what to share.
Share it all.
Share all?
Share all.
Really?
And we'll cut.
Yeah, but if I say should I say the name of the church?
Just allude.
Okay. I'll just say this church. Yeah. Okay.
It's crazy because it's like your story.
Your story. A little bit. Tiny part. I wouldn't take real claim to it. Anyway, I'm excited to tell this story. I haven't told it in a while. I do have to shout out one of my best friends, Alex, who was one of the main people in this story. And he told this to me as well as the main victim. And the main victim in this story, or character in this story is, we'll call him Ricky. So Ricky is a Filipino, and this is when I was living in the Philippines. This happened in the early summer of 2012. And Ricky was in a McDonald's, and he's standing behind this tall, old white man who's in line. They're waiting to get some food. And he taps on this man, and the man turns around. And this man is a missionary for the Mormon church. If you didn't know, we call them senior couples. Usually married couples will go out and serve a mission as well. Maybe not do as intense things as like the younger missionaries. But we loved like the senior couples. They would like feed us all the time. They were like our grandparents out on the mission, which some of you can maybe relate. Anyway, he was one of the senior couples. He was just grabbing some food. Ricky taps him on the shoulder, and this man turns around, and Ricky says, "Excuse me, are you a missionary?" Because I guess at some point he saw the black name tag on his white shirt. And this missionary says, the old man says, "Yeah, I am. Did you have any questions?" And Ricky said, "Actually, I just kind of want to learn more about your church." And the man says, "I know just the people." So he hits up some of the younger missionaries who teach the lessons and know the language.
And if you're a Mormon and you served a mission, you know that never happens.
Yeah, because everyone else is shutting you down, slamming doors in your face.
Understandably, it's like it's a very hard subject to broach, and especially to like be vulnerable enough to like enter into a conversation about religion and stuff like that is like not the most common thing in this day and age. I think as you're listening to Deejay's story, keep in mind like whether you believe in religion or not, think of like the context of like the way missionaries view the world. Like they really believe in good and evil and in like wanting to share good, right? Mm-hmm. So and I don't know, I feel like that's kind of important
to this.
Yeah, even if you don't believe in God, that's fine. But there are people out there who do, and that's how they're seeing the world through that lens. Mm-hmm. And like to them, it's 100% real.
Yeah, and the way I tell this story, obviously this is going to be told through like a Mormon paradigm, because at the time, I mean, I was on my mission as a missionary, knocking on these doors, and my entire upbringing was pretty much Mormon. My family, they're Mormon, and yeah. So the beliefs and the motives behind this story are going to be explained through that paradigm. Whether you believe it or not, this is just the information, what happened on our side. So anyway, so he taps on the shoulder. He says, I want to learn more about this church. The senior missionary says, "Yeah, I know just the people." Hooks him up with the companionship of elders in that area. One of them was one of my best friends, Alex. And they get his number and they're like, hey, we heard that you had some questions or you just want to learn about the church. We're happy to meet with you. And they set a time, date, they meet, and Ricky's on time. He meets him at the church, and that doesn't happen a lot, especially in the Philippines. But this happens like 3 times a week for about a month straight. It's like clockwork. And every time they meet with Ricky, he's super intrigued, has a bunch of questions. He's always on time. Towards the beginning, they asked Ricky, they're like, well, if you come to find out for yourself if, our beliefs are something that you believe in, if you think that, this is true for you, would you be open to, being baptized and becoming a member of the church? And Ricky says, yes, if I find out for myself that this is true and this is something that I believe in, I don't see why I wouldn't, continue on and become a member and get baptized, whatnot. So like, cool. Everything's like going pretty well from a missionary perspective. Then about a month into these lessons that they're teaching, they have another one set up with him. They're waiting at the church. He's always on time. This time he's not. And they're like, that's fine. We'll give him a little bit of time. They're waiting at the church. 15 minutes go by. Nothing. They text him. Wait. No response. They wait almost 45 minutes and then they decide to just go back to the rest of their day. And they text him and say, hey, sorry, we waited as long as we could, but we had to get back to other things. Still no reply. 2 days later, they receive a text from Ricky. And they're really concerned because they have a pretty good relationship. They become friends with this guy. And yeah, they're just kind of concerned because they haven't heard anything from him.
He's completely MIA.
Completely MIA. 2 days later, they receive a text from a different number saying, elders and Mormon missionaries, if you're a male, that's the title. You go by elder and then your last name. So he says, elders, I'm so sorry, but I've been... Okay, sorry, I got to backtrack a little bit. While they're teaching these lessons, they asked him, or they get to know him and his background and where he came from. And he says, I belong to, and I'll keep this organization out, like the church name out. He said, I belong to this other church, big church. And
you could say the biggest.
Yeah. And I was pretty high up in that church. I was at their headquarters for a long time. I was one of the main clergy. Yeah. Clergy? I was one of the main clergymen in the church for a certain part, like sector of that church for a while. And I lived and stayed at those headquarters, and it was my life.
And these are big headquarters.
Yeah.
with a lot of really old documents.
Yeah. And he says, at one point, I was in these archives, which are top secret, and I wasn't supposed to be there. And I came across a few things and pieces of information. And when I read them and I studied them, I quickly came to the conclusion for myself that this isn't where I'm supposed to be anymore. That this shouldn't be my life and that this isn't true for me anymore. So I left. And this is Ricky telling the missionaries during the lessons. And he says, once you become like a clergyman for this church or clergy for this church, you almost become this church's property and they own you. So I couldn't just ask to leave or resign. I had to run away. And I came back here to the Philippines, my home. And a couple days after being home, I was at McDonald's where I saw the older missionary, tapped on my shoulder, and here we are. And I just want to, because I found out for myself that those things aren't true, I knew there was truth out there. So that's what I'm doing here with you guys. Because I've heard about your church. I just want to learn about it and see if you do have that truth. So that was his background. And they continue to teach him, and things seem to go well because he's saying, yes, I'll be baptized if I find out, this is true for me. And they keep teaching him. And then he doesn't show up. Okay. 2 days later, they receive a text from a different number. It's not Ricky's number, but it says, elders, I believe that this is the truth, at least for me. But a few days ago, I was kidnapped by this church's police, and they've taken me to this tiny island, and they're keeping me in a prison cell. I was able to steal somebody's phone while I was out of the cell at some point, and that's how I'm contacting you now. I'm sorry, I'm not around. Please pray for me. And that was it. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know if they should call the police or they should text back because it wasn't his phone or something. The only thing they really did was pray. After this happened, Alex, one of the missionaries who was teaching him, told a few people. I was included in that. And we prayed for him. And that was it for that day. No other texts. We didn't know what else to do. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Another 2 days go by, and Ricky walks into the office, the mission office where these two elders are at. They're working in the office. And they freak out because all they knew was that text. So they sit him down and they're like, what happened? So they sit him down, and he's kind of shaken up, kind of stumbling over his words. Seems really emotional. And they ask him, what happened? So as he's struggling to find the words to say, he goes through the story, and this is it. So he says, the church's police kidnapped me, took me to the island, kept me in the monastery. And that's what I told you when I texted you from that phone that I stole. And they said, yes. And how are you here now? And he said, while I was in that cell, let me describe first how it was all set up. It was like a single room, cell block within a room. And it was in the middle of that room. And around were desks where monks would study. So he was inside this cell room that was inside a bigger room. And then outside that door was the outside. And every day, the monks would, at certain times, would go out and leave. And he wasn't sure what they did, but they would walk out and be gone for a little while before they came back in and studied or did whatever. And at one point, he felt a really strong impression almost to pray. And he remembers the time for some reason that he prayed. And when he said that time, my friend Alex, who's hearing this story, again, one of the missionaries who taught him, said that was the exact same time that I told a bunch of other missionaries that we should pray for you, So at the same time, we're all praying for you, thinking of you, just trying to, ask God for help and comfort, So all of that lined up together. While Ricky is praying, he felt that impression when the monks were out, one of those times, and it was quiet. He had that time to himself. And while he's praying, he's on his knees. He hears click. And his cell door made that sound. And he opens his eyes while he's praying. He's puzzled. He hears almost a voice in his ear say, "Open the door." So he walks to it and he pushes it, and the cell door opens. And he doesn't know what to make of it. But he decides to run with it, and he goes to the other door, which he knows that they also lock. And as he's approaching it, he hears another click. And he hears a voice in his ear again, "Open this door as well." And he pushes it, and it opens. And he peeks out, and he doesn't really see anybody, and he books it. He makes it to the beach, and it's lined with boats. There's a few people there. Didn't look like the monks. They weren't wearing the same uniforms or whatever. Just looked like regular fishermen. He runs to them and he says, "I need to get off of this island. Take me to like the nearest city." And without hesitation, both the fishermen look at each other, look at Ricky, and they say, "Sure, we'll take you where you need to go." So they take him to, it doesn't look like another island. It looks like a bigger piece of land. And this island where the monastery was on was pretty tiny from what he could see as they're driving away on the boat. It takes a few hours to get to, I would assume is Luzon, which is like the main island in the Philippines where Manila is. And as they pull up on the beach, there's more city, more cars. He gets out of the boat and he thanks the fishermen, and they say, "Yeah, no problem." And they head right back. As he's walking towards like the street, a woman in a suit walks straight up to him and says, "Tell me who you are and what you need." And he doesn't know what else to do besides explain his whole situation, what's happened. And by the end of the story, he says, "I just need to get back home." So she hands him a wad of cash and she says, "Get on a plane and get back home." And then she leaves. So he makes it to the airport. He flies to Cebu City, which is where my mission was. And from the airport, catches a cab to the office and walks in and is explaining the story to this dude. And from there, they put him in like witness protection. They take all of the things from his previous apartment and put him in a new apartment close to other members of the church, so he feels somewhat secure. There was a member from the area who lived in the old apartment that he was at, and they did mention that after they came and took all of his stuff, that there were men that came to his apartment, knocking, pounding on the door. No answer because he wasn't there. That's all we have on like that church's police. But they came back trying to look for him. But I met this man, and I met him at his baptism about a month and a half after this all happened. And I mean, like most Filipinos, he's pretty small. He's really soft-spoken, and from just this man's, like, I don't know what you call it or if you believe in it, but like his energy or just like his personality, type of person he was, he just seemed like very earnest. And I could, like, just listening to his voice, to me at the time, sounded honest and sincere and genuine. And I wanted to believe him. So at his baptism, he stood at the front talking about how he believes that this is where he's supposed to be, and shares his experience a bit. And that's the information that I have from that story. I'm not trying to convince anybody of what happened, but at the time, I fully believed in everything that happened. I think I still do. And maybe that's me giving people the benefit of the doubt, like I said earlier. But I think after that, I don't know. I don't know what else to share from that story. I think I don't know. I don't know what else to say. That's the story of Ricky and his conversion to the church and his escape from the previous one. I don't know. I believe that to be a miracle. All of those events, and it sounds way too good to be true. Maybe it is, but
Yeah, this is the first time I've heard that story, and that's like the craziest, most interesting story I think I've heard in a long time. A long time. That's nuts. I don't know if you have any detail, but did he say anything or expound on like the things that he saw at the church headquarters, like the documents he wasn't supposed to?
yeah,
That interests me so much.
yeah,
That's so crazy.
yeah. No, he didn't share what it was that he read, at least with us. And this like baptism event, this story was like famous in the mission.
Oh yeah.
It caught fire, like everybody heard about it after a couple of weeks, which seems kind of slow in American standards. But in the Philippines, we had like, as missionaries, we had limited texts per week, and like so, it took a little while. Took some carrier pigeons, and anyway. So at his like baptism, there was a lot of people. So I don't know. I didn't want to like just. Almost like a celebrity, almost like I didn't want to just like invade his space and ask him all these questions. I don't know. I'll ask my homie Alex though.
Do it.
Alex is somebody who is so trustworthy. I think so highly of him. So to hear him like tell this story as well from his perspective, he's just a man of like, he's very sound. Like, has a good conscience, and yeah, I trust his word. So
Dude, I'm blown away. I don't even know what to say right now.
I don't know what to say either. I don't know. Sorry if it was kind of spotty the way I told it. It's been a while since I've visited the story, but
Yeah.
if you look at it from like that Mormon perspective and paradigm, like for us, like it was like the easiest dots were to connect were, this was a miracle. So
I like to believe there's miracles out there.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's like, if you believe it one way, you got to believe it the other. Like
Yeah.
if you take like the evil spirits or ghosts or whatever, then why not believe in like good things and angels as
Yeah.
well?